The rain came down in sheets that Thursday night, but Simone barely noticed. She sat in her car across the street from Marcello's, one of the most expensive Italian restaurants in the city, watching her husband through the wide glass windows. Brandon was laughing. His hand reached across the white tablecloth to hold someone else's hand. The woman sitting across from him was young, maybe 25, with honey-colored hair pulled back in a neat bun. And she was pregnant. Very pregnant. Simone's hands gripped the steering wheel so hard her knuckles turned pale. She'd followed Brandon here after finding a restaurant reservation confirmation on the printer at home. He'd told her he was working late. Again. For the third time this week. But something in her gut had screamed that this time was different. She'd driven to his office building and waited. When he left at 7, she followed him across town to this place. Now she watched as Brandon reached across the table and touched the woman's stomach. The woman smiled and placed her hand over his. They looked like a couple. They looked happy. They looked like everything Simone thought she had with him for the past 8 years. Her phone buzzed. A text from Brandon. Meeting running late. Don't wait up. Love you. The lies felt like acid in her throat. Simone took photos through the restaurant window. Brandon kissing the woman's hand. Brandon leaning in close to whisper something that made her laugh. Brandon rubbing her pregnant belly with a tenderness he hadn't shown Simone in months. Maybe years. A waiter brought them wine. Well, wine for Brandon. Water for the pregnant woman. They toasted to something. Simone's vision blurred with tears, but she kept taking pictures. Evidence. She needed evidence. How long had this been going on? How many lies had he told? Every late meeting, every business trip, every time he'd been too tired to talk when he got home. Had it all been her? This woman? This baby? Simone watched them for another hour. They ordered appetizers, entrees, dessert. They held hands across the table. They looked at something on his phone together and both smiled. When the check came, Brandon paid with a credit card. Simone made a note to check their statements. She'd check everything. Finally, they stood to leave. Brandon helped the woman with her coat, his hand lingering on her shoulder. They walked out together, and Simone ducked down in her seat as they passed on the sidewalk. Brandon hailed a taxi, opened the door for the woman, kissed her one more time and closed the door. He watched the taxi drive away before pulling out his own keys and walking to his car parked 2 blocks down. Simone waited until both cars were gone before she started her engine. She drove home in a daze, her mind trying to process what she'd seen. The baby. There was going to be a baby. Brandon's baby. With someone else. She pulled into their driveway and sat in the dark garage. Their house. Their life. Their future. Everything she thought was real had been a lie. For how long? When did it start? Did his friends know? His family? Was she the only one who didn't know her husband was going to be a father with another woman? Simone got out of the car and walked into the house on shaking legs. She poured herself a glass of water and sat at the kitchen table. Her phone sat in front of her with all those damning photos. Proof. Reality. The end of her marriage captured in digital images. She heard Brandon's car pull up an hour later. The garage door opening. His keys in the lock. His footsteps in the hallway. Simone stood and walked upstairs to their bedroom. She couldn't look at him yet. Not tonight. Not until she had a plan. Hey babe, Brandon called from downstairs. Sorry I'm so late. You still awake? Simone closed the bedroom door and leaned against it. Yeah, she called back. Just heading to bed. Long day. Okay. I'll be up in a minute. She listened to him move around downstairs. Opening the fridge. Turning on the TV. Normal sounds of a normal evening. Except nothing was normal anymore. Nothing would ever be normal again. When Brandon finally came upstairs, Simone pretended to be asleep. He showered, brushed his teeth, and climbed into bed beside her. He even kissed her forehead before rolling over. Simone lay in the dark, eyes wide open, listening to her husband's sleep. Tomorrow she would start making calls. Tomorrow she would begin gathering every piece of evidence she could find. Tomorrow she would start building her exit strategy. But tonight, she just lay there, trying to understand how the man sleeping beside her had become such a complete stranger. Simone woke up at 5 in the morning. Brandon was still asleep, snoring softly on his side of the bed. She slipped out quietly and went downstairs to the home office. Her hands still trembled as she opened Brandon's laptop. She knew his password. They'd always shared everything. Or so she'd thought. The email account opened easily. Simone started scrolling through months of messages, her coffee growing cold beside her. Most were work-related. But then she found a folder labeled T Personal. Her stomach dropped. Inside were hundreds of emails between Brandon and someone named Tiffany. The earliest one was dated 18 months ago. 18 months. Simone's breath caught in her throat as she read through them. Can't wait to see you tonight. That hotel was perfect. Let's go back next week. You make me happier than I've been in years. I love you too. The messages went on and on. Plans for dinners. Trips to the coast. Weekends when Brandon told Simone he was at conferences. She'd believed every word. She'd even helped him pack. Simone's hands shook as she scrolled further. 3 months ago the tone changed. I can't believe we're having a baby. This changes everything. I'll tell her soon. We need to look at bigger apartments. The baby will need space. I promise we'll be a real family. Simone printed every email. Page after page spilled from the printer, each one another nail in the coffin of her marriage. She created a folder on a USB drive and saved everything. Then she started looking at their bank accounts. The joint checking account looked normal. But Brandon had access to their savings, their investment accounts, their retirement funds. Simone started pulling up statements from the past year and a half. What she found made her feel sick. Withdrawals. Transfers. Payments to accounts she'd never heard of. $50,000 gone from their savings. $30,000 from investments. Monthly payments of $3,000 to something called Riverside Properties. Hotel charges on credit cards she didn't know existed. Jewelry purchases from stores she'd never visited. Simone made a spreadsheet. Every transaction, every date, every amount. By the time Brandon woke up at 7, she'd documented over $100,000 of missing money. Morning, he said, walking into the office. You're up early. Simone quickly closed the laptop screen. Couldn't sleep. Work stuff on my mind. Want me to make breakfast before I head to the office? She looked at him. This man who'd shared her bed for 8 years. Who'd promised to love her forever. Who was having a baby with someone else while stealing their future. No thanks, she managed. I'm not hungry. After Brandon left for work, Simone made 3 calls. The first was to her best friend Rachel, who worked as a paralegal. The second was to the lawyer Rachel recommended. The third was to her own bank, where she opened a new account in only her name. By noon, she was sitting in attorney Patricia Monroe's office, laying out printed emails, bank statements, and photos from the restaurant. Patricia was a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. She studied everything Simone brought, taking notes as Simone explained what she'd found. How long have you been married? Patricia asked. 8 years. Together for 10. Children? No. We talked about it, but Brandon always said he wasn't ready. Patricia looked at the photo of Brandon touching Tiffany's pregnant stomach. Apparently he's ready now. What do I do? Simone asked. Can he really take all our money and give it to her? Not legally. Marital assets belong to both spouses. What he's done is called dissipation of assets, and judges don't look kindly on it. Patricia leaned forward. Here's what we're going to do. First, I need you to gather every financial document you can find. Bank statements, tax returns, property deeds, retirement account statements. Everything. Second, I need you to document his movements. Where he goes, when, with whom. Keep taking photos. Save every text and email. Third, don't tell him you know. Not yet. Why not? Because right now he thinks he's getting away with it. That means he's not being careful. He'll keep doing things that help our case. The longer we wait, the more evidence we gather, the stronger our position when we file. Simone nodded slowly. How long? 2 weeks. Maybe 3. Can you do that? Can you go home and act normal while we build our case? It sounded impossible. But Simone thought about that woman. That baby. All her stolen money funding someone else's life. Yes, she said. I can do it. Good. One more thing. Patricia slid a business card across the desk. This is a forensic accountant. She specializes in finding hidden assets. I want her to look at everything. If your husband has been this careless with the money we've already found, chances are there's more we haven't seen yet. Simone took the card. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This is going to get hard before it gets better. But I promise you we're going to make sure you get everything you're entitled to. Everything he stole, everything he hid, everything he thought he could keep from you. For the first time since sitting in that parking lot, Simone felt something other than shock and pain. She felt anger. Cold, clear, focused anger. Brandon had made his choice. Now she'd make hers. Over the next 2 weeks, Simone became someone she barely recognized. During the day, she went to work at the advertising agency where she'd been a senior account manager for 5 years. She smiled at colleagues, attended meetings, met deadlines. At night, she played the perfect wife. She made dinner, asked Brandon about his day, even suggested they watch movies together on the couch. But in the hours between she was documenting everything. She hired the forensic accountant, Nicole Chin. Nicole was a small woman with thick glasses and a mind like a calculator. She took everything Simone had gathered and disappeared into the numbers. 3 days later she called Simone with results that made her head spin. "He's been planning this for a while," Nicole said over the phone. "I found 3 separate accounts in his name only. 1 checking, 2 savings. Total balance of about $90,000. All funded with transfers from your joint accounts." $90,000? That's not all. He's been claiming false business expenses on your taxes. Meals with Tiffany reported as client dinners. Hotels reported as business travel. The IRS could come after both of you for that, but we can show you didn't know. That protects you. Simone wrote down everything Nicole said. What else? Riverside Properties is the apartment building where Tiffany lives. He's been paying her rent. $3,000 a month for the past year. There's also a car lease in his name. Red Mercedes. I'm guessing that's not yours. No. Vehicle payments are $800 monthly. Then there's the jewelry. $15,000 spent at Cartier over the past year. $5,000 at Tiffany & Company, ironically. None of it purchased for your anniversary or birthday based on the dates. The list went on. Baby furniture. Medical bills. A trust fund set up in the name Baby Thompson with $20,000. All of it funded with money that should have been building their future. Simone's future. How much total? She finally asked. That I've found so far? Around $230,000. But I'm still looking. Men who hide this much usually hide more. After that call, Simone started following Brandon. Not every day but enough to establish patterns. Tuesday and Thursday nights, he went to Tiffany's apartment in Riverside. He'd park in the garage, stay for 2 or 3 hours, then come home smelling like different soap and making excuses about the gym. Saturday mornings, when he told Simone he played basketball with college friends, he actually took Tiffany to doctor appointments. Simone watched from her car as they walked into the medical building together, his hand on her back. She photographed them coming out an hour later, Tiffany holding ultrasound pictures. The hardest part was Sunday dinners at his parents' house. Sitting at their table, making conversation, knowing they had no idea their son was living a double life. Or maybe they did know. Maybe everyone knew except her. One Sunday, Brandon's mother asked when they were planning to have children. "Soon, Mom," Brandon said, squeezing Simone's hand. "We're thinking about it." Simone smiled and said nothing. In her purse was her phone with photos of Brandon and Tiffany at the obstetrician's office just 2 days before. She wanted to scream the truth across that dinner table. But Patricia had been clear. Stay quiet. Gather evidence. Wait. On day 16 of her investigation, Nicole called again. "I found something big." "What?" "Your husband opened a business account 8 months ago. Thompson Consulting LLC. He's been funneling money there from his work bonuses. Bonuses that should have gone into your joint account per your marriage agreement. There's $75,000 in that account right now." $300,000, Simone said quietly. "He's stolen $300,000. At least, and I have proof of all of it. Bank transfers, business filings, credit card statements, everything. Simone, this is enough. More than enough." That night, Simone sat at her laptop reviewing everything one more time. The emails where Brandon told Tiffany he loved her. The bank statements showing systematic theft. The photos of them together. The list of assets Nicole had uncovered. The timeline that proved this affair had been going on since before he'd taken Simone to Hawaii for their 7th anniversary. That whole trip he'd been texting Tiffany. Probably missing her. Simone made one final document. A timeline. Every lie, every theft, every betrayal laid out month by month. She attached copies of evidence to each entry. Then she saved it all to 3 USB drives. One for her lawyer. One for her safe deposit box. One hidden in her desk at work. The next morning she met with Patricia again. "I'm ready," Simone said. "I want to file." Patricia reviewed the new evidence Nicole had provided. Her expression grew more serious with each page. "This is extraordinary work. He won't be able to deny any of this. The court is going to crucify him. When can we serve him? I can have the papers ready by Friday. Do you want to be there when he receives them?" Simone thought about it. Part of her wanted to hide, to avoid the confrontation. But a bigger part wanted to see his face when he realized she knew everything. "Yes," she said. "I'll be there." Patricia nodded. "Then let's end this marriage." Friday evening, Simone left work early. She stopped by Patricia's office to pick up the divorce papers and the 3-inch thick file of evidence. Then she drove home, set everything on the kitchen table and waited. Brandon came home at 7, right on schedule. He'd been predictable all week. No visits to Tiffany's apartment. No secret phone calls. Just normal Brandon living his normal lies. "Hey babe," he called from the hallway. "What's for dinner?" "I'm starving." "Come into the kitchen," Simone said. Her voice was steady. "Come." She'd practiced this moment in her head 1,000 times. Brandon walked in smiling. The smile died when he saw the papers on the table. Then his face went pale when he saw the folder. And the photos spread out across the surface. Him and Tiffany at the restaurant. At the doctor's office. Going into her apartment building. "Simone," he started. "I can explain." "Sit down. Baby, please. Let me." "Sit down." Something in her tone made him obey. Brandon pulled out a chair and sat, staring at the evidence of his betrayal laid out like a prosecution exhibit. Simone remained standing. "I've known for 3 weeks. I followed you to Marcello's. I saw you with her. I saw you touch her stomach. I watched you kiss her. It's not what you think. Don't." Simone's voice cut like glass. "Don't insult me with more lies. I've read your emails. All of them. 18 months of 'I love you' and 'I can't wait to leave my wife.' I've seen the bank statements. The $230,000 you stole from our accounts. The apartment you're paying for. The car. The jewelry. The trust fund for your baby." Brandon's face went from pale to gray. "How did you?" "It doesn't matter how. What matters is I know everything. And now you're going to sign these." She pushed the divorce papers across the table. "Simone, please. We can work this out. I made mistakes, but—" "Mistakes?" She laughed, and it sounded harsh even to her own ears. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is a one-night stand you regret. You had an affair for 18 months. You got another woman pregnant. You stole hundreds of thousands of our dollars to fund your second life. Those aren't mistakes, Brandon. That's who you are." "I love you," he tried. "I still love you. This thing with Tiffany, it just happened, but you're my wife. You're the one I want to be with." Simone opened the folder and pulled out an email dated 2 months ago. She read it aloud. "Dear Tiffany, I can't wait until we're married and raising our daughter together. Simone and I haven't been happy in years. This divorce is just a formality. My lawyer says we'll be done by summer, and then it's just you and me." She dropped the paper back on the table. "Still love me?" Brandon put his head in his hands. "I didn't mean that. I was just telling her what she wanted to hear." "So you lied to her too? Good to know you're an equal opportunity liar. What do you want from me?" His voice rose. "You want me to beg? Fine. I'm begging. Don't do this. Don't throw away 8 years over one mistake." "I'm not throwing anything away. You already did that." Simone pointed to the papers. "Sign them. And if I don't?" "Then my lawyer files them anyway and we go to court. And in court, I show the judge all of this." She gestured to the evidence. "The affair. The theft. The fraud. And I ask for every single thing I'm legally entitled to. Which, according to my attorney, is about 70% of everything we own. Including this house. Your retirement account. Your stock options. Everything." "You can't do that." "Yes, Brandon. I can. Because you committed marital misconduct. You dissipated assets. You stole from our marriage to fund your affair. No judge in this state is going to let you keep what you took." Brandon stared at the papers. "What are the terms?" "I keep the house. I get 70% of all financial assets, including the money you stole. You give me the account information for every hidden account. You take responsibility for any tax penalties from your fraudulent deductions. You pay my attorney fees. And you never contact me again after the divorce is final except through lawyers. That's not fair." "Fair?" Simone's control finally cracked. "You want to talk about fair? Was it fair to lie to me every day for 18 months? Was it fair to steal our future to buy jewelry for your mistress? Was it fair to risk our financial security so you could play house with someone else? Don't you dare talk to me about fair." Silence filled the kitchen. Brandon looked at the papers, then at Simone, then back at the papers. "If I sign this, can we keep it quiet? I don't want this getting out at work. I don't care about your reputation. Sign the papers or don't. Either way, this marriage is over." Brandon picked up the pen. His hand shook as he signed his name on each page. When he finished, Simone gathered them up and put them in her bag. "I'll need you out of the house by tomorrow," she said. "Tomorrow? Where am I supposed to go? I don't care. Go to Tiffany's. Go to a hotel. Go sleep in your car. That's not my problem anymore. Can I at least pack my things? You have until noon tomorrow. After that, I'm changing the locks. Brandon stood up slowly. He looked like he wanted to say something else, but Simone turned her back on him and walked out of the kitchen. She went upstairs, locked herself in the guest bedroom, and finally let herself cry. In the morning, she woke to the sound of Brandon moving around the house. She stayed in the guest room until she heard the front door close and his car pull away. Then she went downstairs. He'd left his key on the kitchen counter. The master bedroom closet was half empty. His toiletries were gone from the bathroom. Just like that, 8 years of marriage reduced to empty hangers and bare counter space. Simone called a locksmith. By 2 in the afternoon, she had new locks on every door. She changed the alarm code. She called the utility companies and removed his name from the accounts. Then she sat in her living room in the house that was now solely hers and felt nothing. Not sadness. Not anger. Not relief. Just a strange, hollow emptiness where her life used to be. Her phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. Papers filed. Court date set for 6 weeks from now. How are you holding up? Simone looked around her quiet house. I'm okay, she typed back. I'm going to be okay. The next 6 weeks felt like living in a legal thunderstorm. Brandon hired an attorney, Mitchell Stone, who had a reputation for being aggressive and expensive. Within days, they filed a counterpetition claiming Simone was exaggerating the affair and that the money Brandon spent was his to use as he saw fit. Patricia laughed when she read their response. He's playing games. Let's show them we're serious. The first hearing was preliminary, just establishing terms for the divorce proceedings. Simone sat on one side of the courtroom with Patricia. Brandon sat on the other with Mitchell. They didn't look at each other. Judge Sandra Reeves was a stern woman in her 60s who'd been handling family law cases for 30 years. She reviewed both petitions, then looked over her reading glasses at Brandon's attorney. Mr. Stone, your client is claiming the funds in question were his separate property? Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Thompson earned those bonuses through his own work performance. How he chose to spend his earnings is his business. I see. Judge Reeves flipped through the financial documents Nicole had prepared. And the joint savings account that was depleted? Also his to spend? Marital funds can be used by either party for reasonable expenses. $230,000 on another woman seems unreasonable to me, counselor. But we'll let the facts speak at trial. She turned to Patricia. Ms. Monroe, I'm granting your client's request for exclusive use of the marital home during proceedings. Mr. Thompson will need to find alternative housing. Brandon's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. I'm also freezing all joint accounts and requiring full financial disclosure from both parties within 2 weeks. Mr. Thompson, that includes those business accounts I see referenced in these documents. Thompson Consulting LLC? I want every transaction detailed. Mitchell started to object, but Judge Reeves held up a hand. Save it for trial, counselor. This court doesn't look kindly on hidden assets. Next hearing is in 4 weeks. Come prepared to discuss settlement terms. Outside the courtroom, Brandon tried to approach Simone. Patricia stepped between them immediately. No contact except through counsel, she said firmly. Those are the rules. I just want to talk to her, Brandon said. Your time for talking is over, Patricia replied. All communication goes through me or Mr. Stone now. Simone walked to her car without looking back. She heard Brandon call her name once, but she kept walking. That part of her life was finished. Over the next month, the discovery process began. Both sides had to provide complete financial disclosure. Simone's was simple. Her salary from the advertising agency. Her 401k. Her personal checking account with the money she'd moved before filing. Everything transparent and documented. Brandon's disclosure was a different story. He fought every step of the way. Mitchell filed motions to keep the Thompson Consulting accounts private. He claimed the money in those accounts was future business capital, not marital assets. He argued that Brandon's bonuses were performance-based and therefore separate property. Patricia destroyed each argument methodically. She showed the court that Thompson Consulting had done no actual business. It was a shell company designed to hide money. She proved that Brandon's employment contract specified bonuses as part of his marital compensation package. She demonstrated that every dollar in those accounts came from marital funds. Then Nicole delivered the final blow. She'd been subpoenaing bank records and credit card statements. What she found changed everything. There's another woman, Nicole told Simone over the phone. Before Tiffany. Her name is Jessica. He was seeing her 2 years ago. Paid for her apartment for 6 months before they broke up. You're kidding. I have credit card receipts from hotels when you thought he was at conferences. Venmo payments to her. Jewelry purchases. It's the same pattern as with Tiffany just earlier. Simone felt sick. How many times has he done this? At least twice that I can prove. Maybe more. Patricia filed an amended petition adding the Jessica information. When Mitchell received it, he called Patricia's office immediately. This is a smear campaign, he shouted over the phone. Patricia had it on speaker so Simone could hear. You're trying to destroy my client's reputation. I'm presenting facts, Patricia said calmly. Facts supported by bank records, credit card statements, and witness testimony. If your client's reputation is destroyed, he did that himself. We want to settle. I'm listening. 50-50 split of all assets. Brandon keeps his retirement account. Simone keeps the house. Patricia looked at Simone, who shook her head. Not interested, Patricia said. Your client stole marital funds. He committed fraud. He's established a pattern of affairs and financial deception. We're not accepting 50-50. What do you want? 70-30 split in my client's favor. She keeps the house, gets 70% of all liquid assets, and Brandon reimburses her for all funds he stole. He pays both attorney fees. And he admits fault in the divorce decree. Mitchell was silent for a moment. I'll talk to my client. 2 days later they came back with a counteroffer. 60-40 split. Brandon keeps his retirement. They split attorney fees. No admission of fault. Tell them no, Simone said. I want him to own what he did. The second court hearing was different. Judge Reeves had reviewed all the new evidence. She looked at Brandon with undisguised disgust. Mr. Thompson, I've been doing this job for 30 years. I've seen a lot of bad behavior. But your level of deception is remarkable. She held up the amended filing. 2 affairs that we know of. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in marital funds used to support your lifestyle. Shell companies to hide assets. False tax deductions. And now you want to split everything 50-50 as if you did nothing wrong? Brandon's face was red. Your Honor, my personal life. Your personal life became this court's business when you stole from your wife to fund it. Judge Reeves looked at Mitchell. I'm giving you 1 week to work out a settlement. If you can't reach terms, we go to trial. And I promise you, Mr. Thompson, you won't like the outcome if we do. Your Honor, Mitchell began, we feel? 1 week, counselor. Work it out. That week, Brandon's whole life started crumbling. Somehow, word of the divorce spread at his company. HR called him in for a meeting about the false expense reports. The ones where he'd claimed affairs as business trips. They suspended him pending an internal investigation. Tiffany found out about Jessica. And about the fact that Brandon had told her he was getting divorced soon, when really he'd been fighting to keep half the marital assets. She called Simone's lawyer's office and volunteered to testify about everything Brandon had promised her. Everything he'd lied about. With 5 days until the deadline, Mitchell called Patricia with a new offer. 65% to your client. Brandon keeps his retirement but pays back the stolen funds. He pays all attorney fees. He admits to marital misconduct in the filing. Simone considered it. It wasn't everything, but it was close. And it was an admission. Public record that Brandon Thompson had cheated and stolen. 70%, she said. And we have a deal. Patricia relayed the terms. There was a long pause. Then Mitchell said, deal. The settlement agreement was signed on a rainy Tuesday morning. Simone sat in Patricia's conference room reading through the final terms. 70% of all marital assets. The house. Reimbursement for the stolen money. Brandon's admission of fault on the public record. Attorney fees paid in full. You did it, Patricia said. This is one of the best outcomes I've seen for this type of case. Simone signed her name on the last page. When is it final? Judge Reeves has to approve it, but that's a formality. You'll be officially divorced in about 60 days. And the money? Brandon has 30 days to transfer your share of the liquid assets. The house title will be changed to your name only. His retirement account stays with him, but everything else comes to you. Simone nodded slowly. It felt surreal. 8 years of marriage ending with signatures on paper and bank transfers. But it was done. Finally done. Over the next few weeks, pieces of Brandon's life continued to fall apart. His company completed their investigation and fired him for fraud. The false expense reports violated company policy and possibly tax law. He was lucky they didn't press criminal charges. Tiffany's baby was born in early May. A girl. Simone heard about it through Rachel, who heard it from a mutual friend. Brandon missed the birth because he was in meetings with lawyers about the IRS audit his false tax returns had triggered. Then came the biggest revelation. Patricia called Simone 3 weeks after the settlement was signed. "You need to come to my office. Today if possible." "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. But there's something you need to see." An hour later, Simone sat in the same conference room where she'd signed the divorce papers. Patricia had a visitor. A woman in her 30s with nervous hands and tired eyes. "Simone, this is Tiffany." Simone's whole body went rigid. "What is she doing here?" "Please," Tiffany said. "Just hear me out. I know you have no reason to listen to me, but I need to tell you something. About Brandon." "I don't want to hear anything about Brandon." "It's not about the affair," Tiffany said quickly. "It's about money. Your money." Simone looked at Patricia, who nodded. "Listen to her." Tiffany pulled papers from her purse. "Bank statements. Account information. Transfer records. Brandon told me he was getting divorced. He said you were taking everything and he'd be broke. He asked me to help him hide money." "What?" "He opened accounts in my name. Said it was for the baby, but it wasn't. It was his money. Hidden money. He transferred almost $100,000 to accounts with my name on them, but he has the passwords. He controls everything." Simone looked at the papers. Sure enough, there were 3 accounts at different banks. All with large balances. All in Tiffany's name. All funded with transfers from Brandon's hidden Thompson Consulting account. "Why are you telling me this?" Simone asked. Tiffany's eyes filled with tears. "Because I'm not the first. I found out about Jessica. And about you. I found out he lied about everything. He said he loved me. That we'd be a family. But when the baby came, he wasn't there. He didn't even show up until 2 days later. And when I asked him about moving in together like he promised, he said we needed to wait. Always waiting. Always delays." She wiped her eyes with shaking hands. "Then I found these accounts. And I realized he's been using me. The apartment? It's in my name now. He transferred the lease to me and stopped paying rent. The car? He returned the lease and told me to use my own car. Everything he promised disappeared as soon as that baby was born." "I'm sorry," Simone said, and meant it. "But I still don't understand why you're here." "Because he stole from you. And he used me to do it. These accounts? They should be yours. The court ordered him to give you 70% of assets. This is part of that. I'm not going to let him use me to cheat you." Patricia was already taking notes. "Can we access these accounts?" "I have all the login information. My name is on them. Legally, I can withdraw the money." "And you're willing to turn it over to Simone?" "Yes. All of it. I don't want his blood money. I don't want anything from him anymore." Over the next week, Patricia worked with Tiffany to recover the hidden funds. It wasn't quite 100,000. Brandon had been slowly moving money out, probably to yet another hiding place. But they recovered $83,000. Patricia filed a motion to hold Brandon in contempt for hiding assets. Judge Reeves was not pleased. "Mr. Thompson, you agreed to a settlement. You signed documents swearing you disclosed all assets. And now we discover you've been hiding money in your girlfriend's name." Brandon's new lawyer, a younger man who looked overwhelmed, tried to argue that the money was for the baby. Judge Reeves shut that down immediately. "The money is marital assets that should have been disclosed. Mr. Thompson, I'm ordering you to pay an additional $20,000 to your ex-wife as a penalty for contempt. And I'm referring this matter to the district attorney to investigate whether criminal fraud charges are appropriate." Brandon stood there, face pale, as his world collapsed further. Outside the courtroom, Simone saw Tiffany sitting on a bench holding her baby. She walked over slowly. "Thank you," Simone said. "You didn't have to do that." Tiffany looked up, bouncing the baby gently. "Yes, I did. What he did to you, he did to me too. Maybe not the same way, but he lied to both of us. He used both of us. What will you do now?" "Figure it out, I guess. Get a job. Raise my daughter. Try to move on." Simone looked at the baby. She had Brandon's nose. "What's her name?" "Hope. Because that's all I have left." Something in Simone's chest tightened. This woman had been as deceived as she had been. Different lies, but the same liar. "There are resources," Simone said. "For single mothers. My friend Rachel works with a non-profit that helps with childcare and job placement. I can give you her number." "You do that? After everything? You didn't betray me." "You did. You were just trying to build a life, same as I was." Tiffany wrote down Rachel's number with tears in her eyes. Then she stood with the baby and walked away. Simone watched her go, feeling a strange mixture of pity and kinship. They both loved the same man. They both believed his lies. And now they were both moving forward without him. The divorce was finalized in June. Simone Thompson became Simone Waters again, taking back her maiden name. The house was fully hers. The money was in her accounts. Brandon was out of her life except for occasional updates from Patricia about his legal troubles. The IRS had indeed pursued him for tax fraud. His former company was cooperating with investigators. He'd moved into a cheap apartment across town and was working as a regional manager for a furniture store. His career in corporate finance was over. Simone felt nothing when she heard these updates. No satisfaction. No vindication. Just a vague sense that justice had been served and she could finally close that chapter. But closing one chapter meant starting another. And Simone had no idea what that looked like. She went back to work at the advertising agency, but it felt hollow now. For 8 years she'd been building someone else's vision. Following someone else's plan. She'd put her own dreams on hold because Brandon wanted to focus on his career first. They'd always said later. Later they'd start a family. Later she'd pursue her own projects. Later. There was no later anymore. One evening, Simone sat in her home office looking through old files. She found a business plan she'd written 6 years ago. Waters Brand Consulting, helping small businesses tell their story. She'd been excited about it then. She'd done the research, created projections, even designed a logo. But Brandon had discouraged her. The market's too crowded, he'd said. Why compete with the big firms when you have a stable job? Simone read through the business plan again. The market was still crowded. But in 6 years of working at the agency, she'd built relationships with dozens of small business owners. She knew their struggles. She understood their needs. And she had skills those big firms didn't offer. Personal attention. Customized strategies. Real partnership instead of cookie-cutter solutions. What if she actually did this? The next day she called 3 former clients. Small businesses she'd helped while at the agency but who'd left because they couldn't afford the big firm rates. This is Simone Waters. I don't know if you remember me, but I worked on your account at Prestige Marketing 2 years ago. The owner of a local bakery remembered her immediately. Simone. Of course. How are you? Are you still at Prestige? Actually, I'm starting my own consulting firm. Small business brand strategy. I was wondering if you'd be interested in discussing your current marketing needs. There was a pause. Then, when can you come by? By the end of the week, Simone had meetings scheduled with 5 potential clients. She registered Waters Brand Consulting as an LLC. She set up a business bank account. She created a simple website. And she worked nights and weekends developing proposals for each potential client. 3 of them signed contracts. Not huge contracts, but enough to validate the idea. Enough to make it real. Simone gave her notice at the agency. Her boss was surprised. You're one of our best account managers. Are you going to a competitor? No. I'm starting my own firm. In this market? That's risky. Maybe. But I need to build something that's mine. Her last day at the agency was in July. Walking out of that office for the final time, Simone felt lighter than she had in years. No more building someone else's vision. No more playing it safe because someone else wanted security. She was 42 years old. Divorced. Starting over. And it felt like freedom. The first month was terrifying. Simone worked from her home office, taking client calls in her kitchen, designing marketing strategies on her laptop. Money was tight even with the divorce settlement. She put most of it in savings and was living off her business income to prove the concept could work. Some days she had no meetings and questioned everything. Other days she had 3 client calls and felt energized. The uncertainty was exhausting. But it was her uncertainty. Her risk. Her potential success or failure. In August, one of her clients referred her to another business. Then that business referred her to 2 more. By September, Simone had 8 active clients and a waiting list of 3 others. She hired her first employee in October. Melissa was a recent marketing graduate who reminded Simone of herself 20 years ago. Eager, talented, hungry to prove herself. I can't pay you what the big firms would, Simone admitted during the interview. But I can give you real responsibility and partnership in building something new. When do I start? Melissa asked. With help, Simone took on more clients. They moved out of her home office into a small suite downtown. 2 rooms, a shared bathroom, and a coffee maker that barely worked. But it was theirs. Waters Brand Consulting was real. In November they landed their first major client. a regional restaurant chain looking to rebrand. The contract was worth more than Simone had made in 3 months at the agency. When the CEO shook her hand and said, "We're excited to work with you," Simone had to fight back tears. She built this. On her own. After everything fell apart, she built something new. That night, Simone sat in her living room with a glass of wine, looking at the framed first dollar her business had earned. It was mounted next to her new business license on the wall. Her phone buzzed. A text from Rachel: "Heard you landed the Riverside Restaurant's account. You're killing it." Simone smiled. "Thanks. Still feels surreal. You deserve every bit of it. Dinner this weekend to celebrate?" "Absolutely." Simone set down her phone and looked around her house. The house Brandon had helped decorate but never really made a home. She'd redecorated over the summer. New paint colors. New furniture. Nothing that reminded her of him. This was her space now. Her home. Her life. And for the first time in years, she was genuinely excited about what came next. While Simone's business grew, Brandon's life continued its downward spiral. Simone heard updates occasionally through mutual friends, though she never asked for them. The IRS case had resulted in a settlement. Brandon paid back taxes plus penalties. Nearly $40,000 gone to fix the consequences of his lies. His new job at the furniture store paid less than half his previous salary. He'd gone from a 6-figure income to barely scraping by. The child support payments for Hope took a third of what he did earn. Tiffany had indeed called Rachel and gotten help. She'd found a job as a medical billing clerk and enrolled Hope in subsidized childcare. She'd made it clear to Brandon that she wanted nothing from him except the court-ordered child support. No relationship. No co-parenting beyond the legal minimum. Just the money the court said he owed. Brandon had apparently tried to get back together with her several times. He'd shown up at her apartment with flowers. With apologies. With promises that things would be different. Tiffany had called the police and gotten a restraining order. Simone heard all this from Rachel, who heard it from Tiffany, who'd become her friend over the months of working together. The whole situation felt distant to Simone. Like hearing about characters in a movie rather than people who'd shaped her life. In December, Brandon's new lawyer contacted Patricia. He wanted to reduce child support payments because of his reduced income. Can he do that? Simone asked when Patricia called to tell her. He can petition the court, but it's unlikely to be approved. He reduced his own income through his choices. The court won't penalize the child for that. I don't care what happens with the child support. That's between him and Tiffany. I know. But I thought you should be aware in case he tries to claim he needs to modify your settlement too. He can try. The answer is no. Brandon did try. His lawyer sent a letter asking Simone to voluntarily reduce the amount Brandon still owed in restitution for the stolen money. The letter claimed he was experiencing financial hardship and needed compassion during a difficult time. Patricia sent back a one-line response, no. Simone never even saw the letter. She told Patricia to handle all communication with Brandon and his lawyers. She had no interest in his hardships. He'd created this situation. He could figure it out. Meanwhile, Waters Brand Consulting was thriving. Simone hired 2 more employees in January. They moved to a larger office space. She'd been featured in a local business magazine as an entrepreneur to watch. The article talked about her journey from corporate account manager to business owner, though it carefully avoided mentioning the divorce. One morning in February, Simone was meeting with a potential client when Melissa knocked on her office door. Sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here to see you. He says it's important. Who is it? Melissa's expression was uncomfortable. He says he's your ex-husband. Simone's stomach dropped. Tell him I'm in a meeting. Ask him to leave. I did. He says he'll wait. Simone excused herself from the client meeting and went to the lobby. Brandon was sitting in one of the waiting room chairs, looking smaller than she remembered. Thinner. Older. He stood when he saw her. Simone. Thank you for seeing me. I didn't agree to see you. You showed up at my workplace uninvited. You have 5 minutes to say whatever you came to say, and then you need to leave. Can we talk somewhere private? No. Right here is fine. Brandon glanced at Melissa, who was pretending to work at the reception desk but clearly listening. He lowered his voice. I made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. I know that. But I've lost everything. My job, my career, my reputation. I'm barely making rent. I can't afford the restitution payments and child support and my own bills. I need help. And you came here for what? Money? No. I mean, not exactly. I just thought, with your business doing so well, maybe you could talk to the court. Tell them I'm making an effort. That I don't need such aggressive payment terms. Simone stared at him. You came to my office to ask me to help you avoid the consequences of stealing from me? When you put it like that. There's no other way to put it. You stole hundreds of thousands of dollars from our marriage. You lied for years. You committed fraud. And now that you're facing consequences, you want me to save you? I'm drowning, Simone. I need help. Then get a second job. Move to a cheaper apartment. Stop spending money you don't have. Figure it out the way everyone else does. But don't come here asking me to bail you out. I'm still the father of a child. Hope needs a father who takes responsibility for his choices. She needs child support paid on time. She needs you to be an adult instead of making excuses. Simone crossed her arms. Your 5 minutes are up. Leave. Simone, please. Now. Or I call security. Brandon looked like he wanted to argue. But something in Simone's expression must have convinced him she meant it. He turned and walked to the door. At the threshold he looked back one more time. I really did love you, you know? No, Simone said quietly. You loved what I gave you. There's a difference. After he left, Simone stood in the lobby for a long moment. Melissa approached carefully. You okay? Yeah, Simone said. I'm fine. Where were we on the Johnson account? She went back to work. Back to building her business. Back to her life. And she didn't think about Brandon again for the rest of the day. Spring brought unexpected opportunities. Waters Brand Consulting was approached by a national retail company looking to revamp their local marketing strategies. They wanted to hire Simone to consult on 15 stores across 3 states. The contract was worth $200,000. Simone read the offer letter 3 times before calling Patricia. Is this real? Can they really pay this much? Patricia reviewed the contract. It's legitimate. Standard terms for a consulting agreement this size. They're serious. This is more than I made in 2 years at the agency. You've built something valuable. They recognized that. Simone signed the contract with shaking hands. This was it. Real success. Proof that she could build something bigger than herself. The work was intense. Simone traveled to different cities, met with store managers, analyzed local markets, and developed customized strategies for each location. Her team expanded to 6 people to handle the workload. They moved to an even larger office with a conference room and private offices for senior staff. 1 year after starting Waters Brand Consulting, Simone's business had 15 clients and annual revenue of $500,000. She paid herself a salary twice what she'd made at the agency. She contributed to retirement accounts. She built an emergency fund. She had security, but security she'd created herself. In May, the local Chamber of Commerce named her Entrepreneur of the Year. The award ceremony was at a fancy hotel downtown. Simone wore a navy dress and silver heels. Rachel came as her guest. When they called Simone's name, she walked to the stage feeling surreal. The chamber president handed her a crystal award and invited her to say a few words. Simone looked out at the audience. Business owners. Community leaders. People she'd admired for years. A year and a half ago, my life fell apart, she began. I lost my marriage. I lost my sense of security. I lost the future I thought I was building. But I learned that sometimes the best thing that can happen is losing something that was never going to work anyway. Because it forced me to build something new. Something real. Something mine. She held up the award. This represents more than business success. It represents the power of starting over. Of taking risks. Of believing you can build something better than what you lost. Thank you to everyone who supported me on this journey. To my incredible team. To my clients who took a chance on a brand new firm. And to everyone out there considering starting over in any aspect of life. You can do it. I promise you can. The applause was loud and genuine. As Simone walked off the stage, several people approached to congratulate her. To ask about consulting services. To share their own stories of starting over. Later that night, Simone and Rachel went to dinner at a quiet restaurant. Not Marcello's. Simone would never go back there. But a new place with good food and better memories. I'm proud of you, Rachel said, raising her wine glass. You've come so far. We both know I couldn't have done it without your help. All those late-night phone calls when I was falling apart. That's what friends are for. But you did the hard work. You built this life. Simone's phone buzzed. A text from Melissa. Congratulations, boss. You deserve everything good. Then another text. This one from an unknown number. Saw you on the chamber website. Congratulations on your award. You earned it. Simone frowned. Who is this? The response came quickly. Tiffany. Rachel gave me your number. Hope you don't mind. Just wanted to say I'm happy for you. You're an inspiration. Simone smiled and typed back. Thank you. How's Hope? Growing so fast. Starting to walk. Keeps me busy. I'm glad things are working out for you. Same to you. You built an amazing life. Makes me believe I can do the same. Simone put her phone down and looked at Rachel. Life is strange, isn't it? A year ago I was devastated. Now I'm winning awards and texting with my ex-husband's baby mama like we're old friends. You're both survivors, Rachel said. You both got hurt by the same person and came out stronger. That's something to bond over. I suppose it is. The next week brought even better news. The national retail company was so pleased with Simone's work that they wanted to expand the contract to 30 stores. Another $300,000. And they wanted to put Waters Brand Consulting on retainer for ongoing support. Simone's business was becoming more successful than she'd ever imagined. In June, she received a formal letter from the court. Brandon had petitioned to reduce his restitution payments. The hearing was scheduled for July. Patricia called to discuss strategy. He's claiming he can't afford the payments. We'll show the court his spending history and demonstrate that his financial problems are self-created. Do I need to be there? It would help. Judges like to see the injured party. Simone agreed to attend. The hearing was brief. Brandon's lawyer presented his case. Reduced income. High expenses. Difficulty making payments. Patricia presented bank statements showing Brandon still spent money on non-essentials. Restaurant meals. Streaming services. A new television. He wasn't destitute. He was just unwilling to sacrifice. Judge Reeves reviewed the evidence. Mr. Thompson, you stole from your wife. You hid assets. You committed fraud. The restitution you're paying is less than what you actually took. I see no reason to reduce it. Petition denied. Brandon slumped in his chair. His lawyer gathered papers and left without another word. As Simone walked out of the courtroom, Brandon caught up to her in the hallway. You could have helped me, he said. You could have told the judge I'm trying. Are you trying? Or are you just upset that actions have consequences? I've lost everything. No. You gave up everything for a fantasy. There's a difference. Simone looked at him without anger. Just pity. I hope someday you figure that out. For Hope's sake. She walked away and didn't look back. 1 year later, Simone stood in her new office on the 10th floor of a downtown building. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Waters Brand Consulting now had 23 employees and annual revenue exceeding $2 million. They'd expanded beyond local businesses. National brands were hiring them. Industry publications were calling her for expert quotes. She'd been invited to speak at conferences. The girl who'd once doubted she could run her own business was now leading a firm that competed with the corporate giants. Simone had bought a new house 6 months ago. A modern place with clean lines and a home office that was actually separate from her living space. No memories of Brandon anywhere in it. Just her fresh start in physical form. She'd started dating again, though nothing serious. A few dinners with men Rachel introduced her. One relationship that lasted 3 months before they mutually agreed they wanted different things. Simone wasn't in a rush. She was enjoying building her life without needing someone else to complete it. Tiffany had become an unexpected friend. They met for coffee once a month, two women who'd both been betrayed by the same man and both come out stronger. Tiffany had been promoted to billing supervisor at her medical office. Hope was thriving in daycare. They'd moved to a better apartment. Brandon wants more custody, Tiffany mentioned during one of their coffee dates. His lawyer sent a letter. What did you say? I said if he pays child support on time for 6 consecutive months and completes a parenting class, we can discuss supervised visits. Until then, no. Good for you. I learned from watching you. Don't accept less than you deserve. Don't let someone else's chaos become your problem. Simone smiled. We both learned that the hard way. In September, Waters Brand Consulting was featured in a national business magazine. The article highlighted Simone's journey from corporate employee to entrepreneur. It talked about her innovative approach to brand consulting and her focus on building genuine partnerships with clients. The article mentioned she was divorced but didn't include details. Just one sentence. After a difficult personal transition, Waters channeled her energy into building something meaningful. That felt about right. Simone's parents called after the article came out. They'd worried about her starting a business at 42 after a divorce. Now they were proud. You've always been strong, her mother said. We just didn't realize how strong. Her younger sister, who'd been skeptical about the business, sent flowers to the office with a card. "You proved me wrong. So proud of you." The validation felt good. But Simone had learned she didn't need it. The business succeeded because she worked hard and delivered results. Other people's opinions couldn't make or break that. In October, she received an invitation to join the board of a nonprofit supporting women entrepreneurs. The organization helped women start businesses after major life transitions. Divorce, widowhood, job loss, any situation where someone needed to rebuild. Simone accepted immediately. She wanted to help other women the way Rachel had helped her. The way Patricia had fought for her. The way her team had believed in her vision. At the first board meeting, she met other women with similar stories. Businesses built from rubble. Success born from necessity. Strength discovered through survival. "I thought I was the only one who felt like an imposter at first," one woman admitted. "Like I was playing at being a business owner." "We all felt that way," another said. "But we kept showing up. And eventually we weren't pretending anymore. We were actually doing it." Simone thought about that conversation on the drive home. She wasn't pretending. Waters Brand Consulting was real. Her success was real. The life she'd built was real and solid and entirely hers. That evening, she sat in her home office reviewing the year's financial statements. Profit margins were healthy. Employee satisfaction surveys were positive. Client retention was at 90%. By every measure, the business was thriving. Her phone rang. "Patricia. You're officially and completely free," Patricia said. "What do you mean?" "Brandon made his final restitution payment today. He doesn't owe you anything anymore. No legal ties. No ongoing court matters. You're done." Simone felt something release in her chest. Done. After 2 years of legal battles and payment plans and occasional court hearings, it was finally over. "How do you feel?" Patricia asked. "Free," Simone said. "I feel free." After the call, Simone poured herself a glass of wine and walked onto her balcony. The city lights spread out below her. Somewhere out there, Brandon was living his reduced life. Paying child support. Working his retail job. Dealing with consequences. Simone felt nothing about that. No satisfaction. No anger. No connection at all. She'd built something better than revenge. She'd built a life. The next morning, Simone met with her leadership team. They were discussing expansion plans. Possibly opening a satellite office in another city. Hiring specialized consultants. Taking on bigger corporate clients. "It's risky," her CFO said. "Expansion always is." "But we're ready," Melissa added. She'd been promoted to Director of Client Services. "We have the team. We have the reputation. We have the track record." Simone looked around the table at the people who'd helped build this company. People she'd hired and mentored. People who believed in the vision. "Let's do it," she said. "Let's build something bigger." They spent the next 3 hours planning. Markets to enter. Positions to fill. Timelines and budgets and strategies. It was energizing and terrifying and exactly what Simone wanted. That weekend she went hiking with Rachel. They'd started doing this monthly. Time in nature, away from work and stress and city noise. "You seem happy," Rachel observed as they reached a viewpoint overlooking the valley. "I'm happy." "Is that strange?" "Why would it be strange?" "Because 2 years ago my life imploded. My marriage ended. Everything I thought was true turned out to be lies. I should still be recovering from that." "Maybe you are recovered. Maybe happiness is what recovery looks like." Simone thought about that. "I think you're right. I spent so long being angry, then hurt, then determined to prove I could survive. I forgot to notice when surviving turned into actually living." "You're not just living. You're thriving." They sat on a rock overlooking the valley, eating sandwiches and drinking water. The sun was warm. The air was clear. Life felt good. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Brandon hadn't cheated?" Rachel asked. "Sometimes. But honestly, I think I would have stayed stuck. Building his dreams. Supporting his career. Putting off my own goals. The affair was terrible, but it forced me to become someone I'm proud of. The best revenge." "No," Simone corrected. "The best revenge would have been destroying his life. This is better than revenge. This is building a life he could never touch. Never diminish. Never take credit for. This is all mine." A year later, Waters Brand Consulting had offices in 3 cities. Simone had hired a managing director to handle day-to-day operations so she could focus on strategy and business development. The company had been profitable enough for her to take a real vacation. 2 weeks in Italy. Just her, good food, beautiful art, and zero thoughts about ex-husbands or betrayal. She'd also started seeing someone. A man named Anthony she'd met at a conference. He owned a construction company and understood the demands of running a business. They took things slow. No rushing. No pressure. Just enjoying each other's company and seeing where it went. On the 3-year anniversary of her divorce, Simone hosted a party at her house. Not to celebrate the divorce but to celebrate the business. 3 years of Waters brand consulting. 3 years of growth and success in building something meaningful. Her team came. Her friends came. Tiffany came with Hope, who was now a chatty 3-year-old. Patricia came. Even some of Simone's clients showed up. Simone stood in her beautiful house, surrounded by people who'd supported her journey, and felt overwhelmed with gratitude. Speech, someone called out. Simone laughed but climbed onto a chair so everyone could see her. 3 years ago I was lost. I just discovered my husband's affair. My marriage was ending. My future looked completely different than I'd planned. I was terrified. She paused. But I had people who believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. And I learned that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you leads to the best thing you ever do. She raised her glass. To new beginnings. To taking risks. To building lives that make us proud. Thank you all for being part of mine. The party lasted into the evening. People shared their own stories of starting over. Of taking chances. Of building new lives from broken pieces. Long after everyone left, Simone sat on her couch with a cup of tea. Her house was messy from the party. Dishes in the sink. Glasses on tables. She'd clean it tomorrow. Tonight, she just wanted to sit in the beautiful chaos and feel grateful. Her phone buzzed. A text from Anthony. Beautiful party. Beautiful home. Beautiful you. Thank you for including me. Simone smiled and typed back, thank you for being there. Another text came through. This one from an unknown number. Heard about your party from Tiffany. Sounds like you're doing well. Happy for you. Brandon. Simone stared at the message. 3 years ago, a text from him would have ruined her day. Now she felt nothing. Just a vague recognition that he existed somewhere in the world and it had nothing to do with her. She deleted the message without responding. Outside, the city lights twinkled. Somewhere out there were other women going through what she'd gone through. Discovering affairs. Filing for divorce. Wondering how to rebuild. Simone hoped they'd find their way like she had. Hoped they'd discover that the end of one story could be the beginning of something better. Hoped they'd learn that the best revenge wasn't destroying the person who hurt you. The best revenge was building a life so full, so successful, so genuinely happy that their betrayal became just a footnote in your story. A chapter that led to better chapters. A closed door that opened better doors. Simone finished her tea and turned off the lights. Tomorrow she had client meetings. Business development calls. Plans to review for the expansion. A life full of purpose and meaning and achievement. She'd been betrayed, stolen from, lied to, and left to rebuild from nothing. And she'd built something extraordinary. That was the real victory. Not revenge. Not even justice, though that helped. The victory was standing in her beautiful home, running her successful business, surrounded by genuine relationships, and realizing she was genuinely happy. The victory was knowing that no one could ever take this away from her because she'd built it herself. The victory was being free.